everyone, today we're working on notes number 5, multiplying radical expressions with variables. So our first step when we want to multiply these is to multiply the coefficients. Coefficients are the numbers, that's a little thick, let me see if I can narrow that down there for here on out. Coefficients are the numbers that are in front of like your radical. So before your square root, whatever number comes before that, that would be your coefficient. And then you're going to multiply the radicands inside the radical together. So the numbers inside the radical or underneath the square root, you're going to multiply those together. And then you're going to combine your variables by adding the exponents. Finally, you will simplify. So let's go ahead and do this here. So when we look at number 1, the first thing we're going to do is add our multiply our coefficient. So coefficient means whatever number is right here multiplied with whatever number is right here. In this problem, there's nothing in front of your square root, so there is no coefficient. So then the next thing we're going to do is multiply what's underneath our radical. So if we take that 20 times that 6, I'm going to get 120. So underneath my radical, I'm going to get 120 for my number. Okay? The next thing we're going to do is multiply our variable. So I have x to the second and this x right there. That x, if there's no number on it, it's really a 1. And when we multiply our exponents, we really add those together. So if I have x to the second and x to the first, that's going to give me x to the third. Okay, so we're not done until we have simplified. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify right now. So the first thing I'm going to do is break up that 120. Just a refresher, our prime numbers I'm going to put up here. We have a 2, 3, 5, 7, 11. Those are going to be our prime numbers. There's a whole lot more after that, but those are the ones that we will utilize for today. Okay, so I'm going to take that 120, it's an even number, so I'm going to divide it by 2, and I get 60. 60 is even, so I'm going to divide it by 2, and I get 30. 30 is even, so I'm going to divide it by 2, and I get 15. 15 is odd, so I'm going to try my 3, and that works out and comes out to a 5. So now I'm going to take all of these prime numbers that I found, and I'm going to put them under my radical. So I'm going to move that over here underneath this radical. So I have 3 2's, so I'm going to say 2 times 2 times 2. I have a 3 and I have a 5. And then when I look, if I have x to the third, that means I have 3 x's. So 1, 2, 3. And those all are underneath that radical. Now I'm going to look for my pairs. So I have a pair of 2's and I have a pair of x's. Remember, those pairs come out front. So my 2 is going to come out front. My pair of x's also are going to come out front, and it's one pair, so I'm just going to write 1x because it's one pair. And then what's underneath the radical that's left needs to be multiplied together. So I need to multiply this 2 times this 3 times this 5. I'm going to take 2 times 5 first, just because that's going to give me a nice 10. So then I have that 10 times that 3, and that's going to give me 30. And then I still have this x left over. So I need to represent that underneath the radical because that didn't go up front. It's going to stay underneath. So this would be my final answer for number 1. Okay, let's look at number 2, doing the same thing. The first thing I'm going to do is look for my coefficient. So my first coefficient should be right here. My other coefficient should be right here. There's nothing in front, so I'm going to ignore that. And now I'm going to do my numbers. So I have 24 and I have an 8. So underneath my radical, I'm going to take 24 and I have to multiply it by 8. And that gives me 192. So 192 is my number. And now I look for my variables, which is this and that. And I take x to the 5th and I add it to x to the 2nd. So that's going to give me not x's, they're a's. That's going to give me a to the 7th. So I'm going to put an a to the 7th right here. Okay? Now I'm going to do the same thing. I have to simplify it, so I'm going to break that up. 192 is even, so I'm going to divide it by 2, and I get 2 and 96. 96 is even, so I'm going to get 2 and 48. 48 is even, I get 2 and 24. 24 is even, I get 2 and 12. 12 is even, I get 2 and 6. 6 is even, I get 2 and 3. Okay, so these all are my prime numbers. And those are going to go underneath my radical. So I'm going to go ahead and put my radical over here and put everything under there that needs to be. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 twos. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I have a 3. And then because of my variable is a to the 7th, I'm going to write 7 A's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And now I'm going to circle my pairs. I have a pair of 2s right here, another pair of 2s, a third pair of 2s. My 3 doesn't have a pair, so I'm not going to circle that. And I have a pair of A's, and another pair of A's. Okay, so remember all these 2s are going to come out front. So out front, I have 2 times 2 times 2. And then my A's also will come out front, which is A times A times A. And then underneath my radical is what's left over. When I look, I have this 3 left over, so my 3 is going to come out. And I have this A left over. So this A is going to be right here. Okay, we're not quite done because the front half of that looks pretty busy. And when we want to simplify, we want it as small as possible. So I'm going to take 2 times 2, which gives me 4, times another 2, which gives me an 8. And then I'm going to add my exponents. My exponents are all 1s on those A's. So I have 3 of those, so it's going to give me a to the 3rd. And then I have a radical 3a. So that's your final answer for number 2. Let's try number 3. I'm going to show you a little bit faster way to do it, how I like to do it. Instead of putting it all under the radical and then pulling them all out again, I'm going to show you a way that we can do that. Okay, but we're going to start the same. We're going to start and see if there's any coefficients. So there's nothing right here, but I have a 4 right here. If there's nothing there, that's really a 1. So 4 times 1 is going to stay a 4. So I'm going to keep that 4 on the outside. And then I'm going to use my radical. And I'm going to multiply what's on the inside. So I have 18 and I have 3. And that gives me 54. So I'm going to put a 54 right there. And then I'm going to look at my variables. I have a to the 2nd and a to the 2nd. That's going to give me a to the 4th. Okay, and I'm not done until I have that 54 down to only prime numbers. So 54, and if I divide 54 divided by 2 because it's even, I get 2 and 27. 27 is odd, so I'm going to say 3 and 9. 9 is odd, and it's 3 and 3. Okay, so this is the faster method. From here, I'm going to circle my pairs. So I have a pair of 3s, and those are going to come out front with this 4, and you're going to multiply them. So if I have a pair of 3s and I have a 4, that's going to give me 3 times 4, because remember those pairs come out as 1. So 3 times 4 is 12. So on the outside, I have a 12. But then I have to remember that I have a variables over here. So I have 4 A's. So A. And if I find those pairs, I'm going to circle those right away. So that gives me 2 pairs of A's. So I'm going to say a to the 2nd. Okay, now I'm going to go with my radical, whatever is left over. So I had a prime 2 and a prime 3. And remember those leftovers? We multiply. So 2 times 3 is 6. And then I would look and see do I have any variables, any A's that were not circled? And I don't. So this would just be my final answer right here. Okay, so let's look at number 4. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to multiply our coefficients. So I have a 2 right here, and I don't have anything in front of my square root of 15. So my coefficient for this one is just going to be a 2. Then I'm going to use my radical symbol. And I'm going to move on to my numbers that are underneath my radical. So I have 5 and I have 15. So I'm going to multiply 5 times 15, and that's going to give me a 75. And then I look at my variables. Sorry about that. I look at my variables, and I have x to the 7th on my first one. I don't have any variables over here, so there's nothing to add to it. It's just going to stay the same. That's going to be an x to the 7th. Okay, another fast way I like to do my x's right away. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then circle my pairs right away. So I have pair, pair, pair. And then I'm going to break up this 75. 75 is odd, so I'm going to start with a 3. And 3 and 25. 25 is odd. If I tried 3, that wouldn't work. So it's going to be 5s, and it's 5 and 5. Now I'm going to circle this pair. Okay, so that pair of 5s is coming out as 1 5, and we're going to multiply it by that 2. So 2 times 5 is 10. So on the outside I have a 10. I have 3 pairs of x's, so I'm going to say x to the 3rd. And I'm going to use my radical. Look for any prime numbers that are left over. I have a 3. There's nothing else that I would multiply it with, so that's just going to stay a 3. And then I also have this x, so that's going to stay an x. Just like that. So that's number 4. All right, let's switch over to the back side to number 5. Okay, just like the other ones, we're going to look at our coefficients. Coefficient on this side is -3 and a 6. -3 times 6 is going to give me a -18 for my coefficient. Then I'm going to use my radical and do what's underneath. So when I look at what's underneath, I have a 7 and I have a 21. So I'm going to multiply 7 times 21, and that's going to give me 147. So my number, my number under there is going to be 147. And then I look at my variables. I have m to the 3rd and m to the 2nd. I actually add those. When I'm multiplying, we're actually adding them. So 3 plus 2 is 5. So that's going to give me a m to the 5th. And then I'm just going to go over here right away, and I'm going to write 5 m's. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to circle my pairs. I have a pair here and a pair here. Now I have to break up 147. So it's an odd number. So I'm going to first divide it by 3, and that works. So I'm going to take 147 and divide it by 3, and I get 49. 49 is odd, so I take 49 divided by 3. That doesn't work. It's a decimal number. 49 divided by 5. Nope, that won't work either. That's a decimal number. So my next odd number would be a 7. 49 divided by 7. Yep, got one of those. So 7 times 7 is 49. So that's going to be my pair. So I'm going to circle my pair of numbers. So that's going to come out as 1, 7, and you're going to multiply it by that -18. So 7 times -18 is going to give you -126. So my outside number for this one is -126. I have 2 pairs of m's, so I'm going to say m squared. Then I'm going to look and see what's left under my radical. I still have a 3 under my radical, so I'm going to keep that a 3. And I still have an m, so I'm going to keep that m underneath there too. All right, last one, number 6. We're going to do the same thing. Coefficients first. I have a -4 and I have a 3. -4 times 3 is going to give me a -12. I'm going to go under my radical. I have a 9 and a 45. It's okay that these get kind of big. You still do the same process that you're used to doing. So 9 times 45 is going to give me 405. Oh, geez. I was so proud of myself that I hadn't done that yet today, and now I just did it twice in a row. So that's going to give me 405. And now I look at my variables. I have x to the 6. And this x, remember, if there's no number on it, it's really a 1. So I have 6 plus 1 is going to give me a 7. So that's going to be x to the 7th. And then I'm going to come over to the side, and I'm going to make 7 x's. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Circle my pairs. Pair, pair, pair. Then I'm going to break that 405 up. 405 is an odd number, so I'm going to start by dividing it by 3. So I'm going to divide it, start with my first odd prime number, which is a 3. And that works. So I'm going to put a 3 on one side and 135 on the other. 135 is also odd, so I'm going to try 3 on that one. And that one actually works. So it's going to be 3 and 45. 45 is odd, so I'm going to try a 3. 3 works. It's going to be 3 and 15. 15 is odd, and it's 3 and 5. I'm going to find my pairs. So I have a pair of 3s and a pair of 3s. Both those 3s come out. You multiply them together, they turn into a 9. So 1 3 and another 3 is going to be a 9. We're going to take that 9 and multiply that by 12. Negative 12. And you get 108, negative 108. So I have a negative 108, and then I have 3 pairs of x's, so it's going to be x to the third. Use my radical. I had a leftover 5, so that 5 is going to go underneath my radical, and then I had a leftover x, so that's going to go right next to my 5. And that's going to be my final answer. We can't get that any more simplified than it already is. All right, you have everything you need to work on the assignment for number 5.